What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC 289. We got Amanda Nunes going against Irene Aldana. And yeah, I mean, this card it's I think it's a step up. I mean, is it a pay-per-view worthy card? Is it a card where I want to go out there and lay $70 on? Not really, but I think it's a breath of fresh air from some of these Apex cards as of late. Like we got Beneil, Dariush, Charles Oliveira. I'm looking forward to that. We got Mike, Malott, Adam Fugitt. I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, not the strongest pay-per-view card, but I think it's a very good card overall. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Definitely looking to talk it over with you, Weezy, the chat. Speaking of Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to this card?
I am. The last card, last night's card, not a lot of name value. And the one 2 weeks before that was even worse, And then we've got Holly Holm versus the Silva card coming up. That's going to be, if you thought Apex cards were bad, the UFC is just saying, guess what we can do? Here's this card. And boy, you look through there, it's like seeing an Arizona desert, because that's how much talent there is there. It's just tumbleweed blowing across a plain that seems to go for miles and miles and miles. And this is much better than that. So, we got to take the good. We got to enjoy it when it comes. There's a couple fights on this card that look like they belonged on the last card or the two before. But there's a lot of really good fights on this card. I mean, Dan Ige versus Nate Landwehr is going to be spectacular. The return of Mike Malott, we don't get to see him fight much. He doesn't show up to fight a lot, Mike Malott. So when he does, we got to enjoy it. And it's only going to take like 90 seconds. So we really got to enjoy it. I mean, like in terms of minutes in the cage per minutes as a professional, Mike Malott has spent such a small part of his professional career actually in a cage fighting. It's hilarious. But this is a good card, man. So I'm looking forward to chopping it up. Last night, bit of a bloodbath for us gamblers, Brady. So we always talk about the vaunted bounce back week. Well, it's coming this week. We've got to get it back because, man, last night, yikes, dude, not good.
Yeah. I'll kick it off with the recap. Not only, I don't know, I missed most of the card. I was able to go back and catch up on some things, but I don't know, it wasn't the best card in the world. I thought the Pineda-Caceres fight was really good. I thought the Gafarov fight was really good. And then there was one other fight that I thought was really good. The Jamie Malarkey fight was good as well, but some weird results last night. So I'll kick it off. And this is why we always talk, we even talked about it last week, bankroll management. If we didn't have bankroll management this week, like we would have both been down like 6, 7, 8 units because, some of the reads this week were just not there. So I'll kick it off. I had a half unit shot on Muin Gafarov plus 110. I thought he looked good for the most part. He did get dropped in the first round. He did get the point taken and he did slow down late in the fight, short notice aspect of things. I'm still very high on Gafarov and I still think he has a lot of upside, but was not able to get the job done. This one hurt the most. It was my biggest play of the night, which was a small play, a unit and a half on the Caceres-Pineda fight. Doesn't go the distance. Caceres hurts Pineda at the end of the first round very bad, almost finishes him. There were multiple submission attempts throughout the entire fight. And then in the third round, like 5 seconds in, Caceres shuts down Pineda with a body kick, and then Caceres proceeds to dance around him and target the head and not once even think about going to the body where Pineda was hurt there. And then Mark Smith was like telling Pineda to fight back multiple times, like at least 5 or 6 times, like fight back. And somehow it ended up going the distance. I'm not sure if Alex Caceres had a decision prop on himself, but if he did, he definitely did cash that one. This was probably my favorite bet of the night. Karina Silva, Ketlin Souza, the fight doesn't go to decision, minus 135. That was pretty much sweat free. Karina Silva took her down and submitted her shortly after. Had a unit on the Kaikar Francimir Albazi fight, doesn't go to decision, minus 115. Came close a little bit in the third round. Albazi got a deep choke in, but Kaikar France submission defense is very good. Was able to get out of that. Another frustrating bet here. I had Daniel Santos inside the distance, and then I also sprinkled the Santos round 2 and round 3. And Johnny Munoz Jr. had one of the most questionable game plans I've ever seen. So Johnny Munoz Jr. not only pulled guard to get the fight down to the mat, but he then proceeded to close his guard and hold on to Daniel Santos and stall out while losing minutes off of his back. I mean, that's That's not how you win a fight as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not sure what happened in that fight, but it obviously didn't play out how I thought. I did have Jim Miller to win in either round 1 or round 2, half a unit, plus 125. Jim Miller made it look pretty easy. And then I also sprinkled Malarkey to win in round 2 or round 3, quarter unit each. I guess I sprinkled the wrong guy to win in the second round because Imavov knocked out Jamie Malarkey in the second round. So yeah, rough night, down about 3 units, my worst night of the year. Definitely looking forward to bouncing back on this card here. Weezy, I know you didn't have the best night in the world, but you also didn't have the worst night in the world. So how'd you do?
Yeah, like after the bloodbath last night, sometimes you got to try to find the positives. So basically, what I said was, hey, the one good thing that I did was good bankroll management because I didn't have a lot of strong leans on this card, and there were so many fights, like the Grisham Lins fight, like the Blackshear Lacerda fight, like the Nurmagomedov Zaleski fight. There were closely lined fights that could have went either way. Even the Jin Yu Fry Elise Reed fight and the main event was a pick'em. So many close fights that you could find reasons to be on either side. So it was one of those cards where you could go 10-2 or you could go 2-10. It was just one of those nights. I went 5-8 on my picks, but I still only was down 1.22 units.
Nice.
But that being said, I am not going to break my arm patting myself on the back, dude, because I was awful last night, dude. Greasy 4-leg parlay, 0 for 4, right? 0 for 4. Don'Tale Mayes gets a finish and ruins the over 2.5 rounds for me. So I start off 0 for 1, and I'm like, watch it go 3 for 4. Nope. Abubakar Nurmagomedov loses a split decision. Now I'm 0 for 2. Somehow the Pineda Caceres fight goes the full 3 rounds. Now I'm 0 for 3 on the Greasy 4-leg parlay. And then in the main event, I had fight doesn't go to decision. Albazi with that deep choke in round 3. They're both throwing bombs and landing, and nobody's going down. So 0 for 4 on the Greasy 4-leg parlay. I bet, so the bets that I lost on was 1.2 units on the fight doesn't go to decision for Kara France versus Albazi. I had a 1-unit parlay, which was the over 2.5 rounds for Arlovsky Mays parlayed with the fight doesn't go to decision for Pineda. That lost both legs there, but I had a quarter unit on Muhammad Naimov at plus 390 because I just thought that line was too wide. And that wound up coming through. So I was down 1.22 units, but like I thought Ketlin Souza was going to win by decision. I mean, you can't be any more wrong than that. She got her ass shaved. So at least I didn't pick Jesse Butler. Okay. I mean, that's the only thing I think that I did right. But and I mean, and Don'Tale Mayes got a finish last night. There were a lot of weird shit. Don'Tale Mayes, congratulations on getting that win. But I'm going to hand him his next loss if he ever shows up for a race. 50-yard dash. Me against Don'Tale Mayes. I'm telling you, I'm going to smoke that dude in a race. He's the slowest man I've ever seen. And he just beat a 44-year-old man, but he's not beating a 49-year-old man in a race, Brady. I could take him. And then, unfortunately, that main event, Brady, tainted once again by the boil on the taint of the UFC that is Chris Lee, okay? Dude, I mean, and when we talk about it, that was a good fight. Kara France versus Albazi was a good fight. Good main event. 5 rounds. 2 top-notch flyweights. Well-matched. Trading rounds back and forth. But there's no way you could give round 4 to Amir Albazi. He got outstruck 27-5. He got taken down. How does that happen? Because there's no way anybody could be that incompetent. It's just not incompetence. It couldn't be. It's got to be on purpose. And they're still investigating James Krause, right? They're still investigating the Federal Bureau of Imbeciles is still investigating Jeff Molina, right? For one fixed fight. And since then, we've had Patty Pimblett be in a fixed fight. We've had Junyong Lee win a fixed fight against Yi Jia. Now we got a judge scoring round 4 for Amir Albazi when it was the only clear round of the fight. Only the round that was completely indisputable, round 3 too, because Albazi definitely won round 3.
Yeah.
And I mean, it didn't cost me a dime. I didn't have a side. I just had the fight doesn't go to decision. But you see that shit because somebody said on Twitter that Chris Lee scored round 4 for Albazi. And I laughed out loud because I thought that's a hilarious joke because that sounds like something Chris Lee would do. And then I saw other people and then they posted the scorecard and I'm like, holy shit, he scored round 4 for Albazi. You couldn't possibly do that, dude. And did Dana White say a word about that?
I don't think so.
Not a word. The silence is deafening from, all this outrage once again about fixing fights and how horrible it is. Well, some guy who's a gym owner who likes to gamble fixes a fight and the fucking FBI gets involved. And, Chris Lee can go out there and score, round 4 for Albazi. And it's just incompetence. It's just the way he saw it. There's not going to be any investigation. And I think it's a crying shame. The integrity of this sport, people going out there and losing brain cells, getting concussions, breaking bones, fighting through injuries, all the things that mixed martial artists do to put food on the table for themselves and their families. And you got somebody ringside who's clearly corrupt or incompetent, but I mean, it's got to be corrupt. It can't just be incompetence at this point.
Maybe both.
And it could be both, but I don't believe that, Brady. I don't believe that. The hidden hand, they hate incompetence, but they reward it a lot. So you usually don't reward incompetence unless it's on purpose. And in this case, I believe that it's on purpose.
Yeah, it was funny, man. Remember last night on Discord, it was the 4th round, and the 4th round was almost over, and I said, and quote, the round is almost over, and Albazi hasn't landed a strike, and there's like 30 seconds left in the round.
Yeah.
Like I swear, I saw him land maybe like 2 strikes in that round. Apparently, he landed like 4 or 5. So to Kai Kara Francis 27, like I don't get it, man.
That's gonna be a long flight back to New Zealand for Kai Kara France. Let me tell you something. That's a long ass flight to go home without that second bag of money that you probably earned, but like. I don't think we'd be talking about it being a robbery if Chris Lee had just scored the 4th round for Kai Kara France. And then whatever rounds were disputable, they got mixed up in a split decision. That's fine. But that's not what happened, So it's just a shame. It's a real shame, dude.
Yeah. You know who else had a long flight as well?
Who?
Jamie Malarkey.
Oh, yeah, that's a long flight too. My God, yeah. And in Tajikistan, stand up. They're probably still partying in the streets of Dushanbe, Tajikistan. It probably looks like my Sigma Chi backyard after we had Derby days and partied for 8 days straight. This thing, that getting that win out of Mohammed Najan is such a huge thing for that country. They were out in droves supporting their fighters. That was really cool to see. And it was even cooler that I cashed almost a unit on it.
Yeah, it wasn't cool for my DraftKings lineups. Jamie Malarkey, 6,700, minus 500 favorite. We'll never see it again, and I took the bait. I took the bait on it.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us, my friend.
Yeah. So I can't wait. I can't wait to bounce back because I don't think this week it can't be any worse. All right, Daz saying Albazi had that oil money come in. Appreciate Daz for the dono. Something was up, but yeah. All right. Weezy, I say we get into it. Yeah, a minus 500 on Malarkey was
in this economy, no chance.
All right, Weezy, I say we dig right in. We have, I think, only a 10 or 11 fights. I think 11, right?
I think it's 11. Yes. Unfortunately, rest in peace, the Roundtree Dawkins fight. Yes. That was going to be so much fun to watch.
Yes, I ended up taping that fight, loving the under. Dawkins had never been over in the UFC. I didn't think it was going to change there. So that would have been a violent fight. Sucks that's off. But Dvorak, we almost lost the Dvorak Dvorak Schnell fight. And then we have Steve Erceg stepping in here. So at least we got one fight saved here. We got David Dvorak. He is 30 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. Steve Erceg, 27 years old, 5'9" with a 69.5-inch reach. We got Steve Erceg, 3 years younger. Erceg with a 4-inch height advantage and a 1.5-inch reach advantage. David Dvorak is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Bruno Silva. Decision win against Jordan Espinoza. Submission win against Juan Camilo Ronderos. a decision loss against. Wait, wasn't Juan Camilo Ronderos the guy that did cocaine, Weezy?
Yeah. He tested for positive for cocaine after that fight, which meant that he accepted that fight that week. So he was probably still had cocaine in his system while he was getting his ass whooped by David Dvorak.
And that's what that's the fighter you got the viral video going, right? Remember
yeah, that's right.
Went viral.
Yeah, there was Moyes did that little gif of me doing the, and I can't even do it now, because he'll probably do it again. But
that was awesome.
That was one of the, like the only impression I've ever done on Stat Diggers.
Amazing impression. But we got a decision loss to Matheus Nicolau and Beneil Kopp as well. Steve Erceg is making his debut, has won 5 in a row here. So like I said, Matt Schnell pulled out, which sucked. I was waiting to cash another flyweight Matt Schnell under. Dvorak is probably going to knock him out because Matt Schnell always gets knocked out. But in steps Steve Erceg. And I think Erceg's been on the UFC's radar for a while because he was supposed to step in on short notice and fight Clayton Carpenter. I think he was supposed to fight on the Contender Series as well. Never came about. But yeah, now he's getting his UFC debut here against David Dvorak. And I'll be honest, I went and watched a good amount of fights on Erceg, a lot available on YouTube. And I like this guy. I think he's solid. He's very big for the division, long range. He can have a reach advantage here, a height advantage here. He's young. He's a very, very good grappler. It's just this is going to be a pretty big step up in competition. And it's not like he's fought some complete bums outside the UFC. He's fought Shannon Ross. He has a win over Sunguk Choi, who is on road to UFC. But this is going to be a pretty big step up here regardless. For David Dvorak, it's going to kind of be a step down, fighting Beneil Kopp, fighting Matheus Nicolau. Before losing to those two guys who are some of the top guys in the division, he was on like a 13 or 14 fight win streak. So I think Dvorak's stock has declined a little bit, but this is kind of a tough matchup for Steve Erceg to come in here and make on short notice. I did not see the line. I think Dvorak's a pretty big favorite. I have to double check the line, but I got to go Dvorak here. I think I have a lot of, I think Erceg has some solid upside. I just think it's a little bit too soon, and I think it's a little bit too much of a step-up competition for me. And stylistically, I'm not sure if Erceg is going to be able to get this fight down to the mat, have his way on the ground with Dvorak. I think Dvorak should be the better striker here and ultimately wins a decision. But I'm assuming Dvorak's a big favorite and just not really something I want anything to do with. Weezy, what are your thoughts on the first fight of the night here?
Yeah, so Dvorak, I saw an opening line. I think he's around minus 350 here. So he's a big favorite, looking between 75 and 80% implied there. And, and it's hard to get away from that when you look at like the names on this dude's resume. He's got a win over Bruno Silva. His last 2 fights are against Nicolau and Kopp. I mean, talk about top 10 flyweights right there. So he's been in there with really good competition. And what you see about Dvorak is that he doesn't take a lot of unnecessary risks. He's very defensively responsible. And by the way, Brady, we got a new spreadsheet here. And so we've got some color coding in the spreadsheet. And what we're doing here, everybody, let me just take you through this real quick. Like, for instance, in the offensive distance striking stats here in the middle of the page, we see that under Dvorak, we see 3.47 distance strikes landed per minute out of 8.64. But this number next to the 3.47 that's color coded tells you how much above or below the average for the division this individual is. So you could see here that Dvorak is landing 3.47 distance strikes per minute. That is 0.46 below the flyweight average for how many distance strikes are landed per minute at distance. So not only are you getting the statistics here on this sheet, Brady, but you're also getting whether the fighter is above or below the average for each division. So we're going to see different benchmarks as we go through different fights. Like, for instance, I've got the benchmarks for the Belbita Oliveira fight are going to be different because they're women's straw weights. And you'll see a lot of, a lot more color because Oliveira actually has some UFC experience, unlike Erceg here on this sheet. Yeah. But when you see something coded in red, it means that they're below the average. When you see it coded in yellow, it's right about average. When you see it coded in green, it means that they're above average. So we're trying to add a new level of analysis here to, because stats differ between divisions. and really doesn't matter, if a woman's flyweight doesn't have as many knockdowns per significant strikes landed as Francis Ngannou. They're not competing in the same division. So now we can see how these fighters, are against other people in their weight class, which is the most important. So either way, this is a big step up in competition for Steve Erceg from the Australian regional scene. Another thing I'd like to know is where's Erceg training, because if he's taking short notice fights, in the UFC, that's a bad thing when you're in Australia and you got to fly all the way to Vegas. That's a whole day of your weight cut week that's going to be spent on a plane. So yeah, this is a tall order for Erceg, but man, can he grapple? He's got good chokes. He gets to people's backs. If you make a mistake against him, he's a very opportunistic submission grappler, a strangulation expert, rear naked chokes, guillotines, arm triangles. He can do it all. So, Dvorak's going to need to mind his P's and Q's on the ground, but he has 81% takedown defense, and about 85% of Dvorak's fights are taking place at distance striking range, Brady, which is very important because a guy like Erceg really is going to need to be able to grapple here in order to have maybe an advantage or at least be on Dvorak's level. But if he's at distance striking range with a guy who's not getting knocked out by Manel Kape, with a guy who's not getting knocked out by Mateus Nicolau, and he's shaving the asses of cokeheads like Ronderos and women beaters like Espinoza. So, there's that gap. We talked about it with Tim Elliott last week, right? Where we're like, he's not beating great names, but the dudes that he's losing to are really good. So you got to determine where the opponent fits in the names that are available to you. And, did Victor Altamirano belong with the names of that are, like Demetrius Johnson, Joseph Benavidez, the guys that were beating Tim Elliott are top-notch guys. So I don't think Erceg quite fits there yet, but I'm interested to see this dude make his debut because he looks like he's talented. He's definitely a finisher. He's got a 78% finish rate. He's finished 7 of his 9 pro wins. So it'll be interesting to see how he does, but it's a tough row to hoe against a guy like Dvorak.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough matchup, hence the line. But I kind of figured he'd be a big dog regardless because he was supposed to fight Clayton Carpenter a couple weeks ago, and they had Carpenter like minus 500, like something wild, like made no sense whatsoever. So I figured if Clayton Carpenter is minus 400, 500 against this guy, then Dvorak's going to be a pretty big favorite as well. So yeah, minus 365 for Dvorak. And on DraftKings, he's minus 435. Huge favorite. I think
that's a big number. That's a big number. Minus 435 in this economy, Brady. In this economy, that's what we said about Malarkey last week. Another guy making a long flight right now. And Erceg, while Malarkey and Kai Kara France are having those long flights home, you got Erceg making a long flight to Vegas to take a short notice fight here against Dvorak.
I think we're in Canada.
Same thing.
It's
a long ass flight.
Yeah.
It's even further then. And now you even got to go further north. So yeah, it's a long ass flight.
Yes. All right. So, yeah. The pick is Dvorak, but I mean, come on. Minus 435. I mean, I think Erceg, he's a BJJ black belt. If he is able to get the fight down to the mat, it could get interesting. It's just easier said than done against a guy like Dvorak. So we'll see what happens there. All right, let's move on to the worst fight on the card. And I think there's only one bad fight on the card, and this is one of them. But with that said, I still think this fight's going to be somewhat entertaining. We got Diana Belbita, 26 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. Maria Oliveira, 26 years old, 5'6" with a 69-inch reach. Same age. Belbita, 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Diana Belbita, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She has had a knockout loss against Molly McCann, decision win against Luana Jojua, decision win against Hannah Goldie, submission win against Gloria DePaula. As far as Maria Oliveira, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut against Tabitha Ricci, lost that fight by decision. She beat Gloria DePaula by decision as a big underdog there, and then she lost to Vanessa Demopoulos by decision. So yeah, like I said, this is a very low-level fight, and I think it's the closest line fight on the entire card. I guess I ended up on the Belbita side. You can see it right there in the numbers in the green, especially. Like the Belbita is throwing and landing a ton of volume. I like the volume from Belbita. I think Oliveira is probably the better striker technically. I think she has some good tools. She's very long, very rangy, but Belbita just throws a ton that I think she can have some success on the feet. But I think a sneaky path to victory for Belbita is just getting this fight down to the mat. I think Maria Oliveira has a huge hole in her game, and that's the takedown defense. I mean, we saw Vanessa Demopoulos take her down twice. I mean, that's really all you need to know. Belbita, she doesn't go for takedowns as really much as I'd like to see inside the UFC and even outside the UFC. But I mean, that's a I mean, if Belbita's smart here, she can get the fight down to the mat easily and probably have success on top. But I think this fight does stay standing for the most part. And if it is standing, I think it's going to be close. So it's a fight I don't really want anything to do with. But as far as a pick goes, I think I ended up with the dog. Belbita, I think she's like plus 100, plus 105. But it's not a fight that's going to be getting my money. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, so you can kind of see that these ladies they kind of do the same things well, and they've struggled in the same areas, right? So Diana and Maria, they've both completed 2 takedowns on 4 attempts. But when you look at what their opponents are doing, Diana has tried 4 takedowns, and her opponents have tried 25. And Oliveira has tried 4 takedowns, and her opponents have tried 18. And both these ladies are getting out grappled. When you see under the control time stats, you're just seeing red. It's just painted red. And when you have below average control time, you are red. When you're giving up more than the average in control time, you're red. When you have a below average ratio, you're red. When you have a below average percentage of control time 1, you're in the red. And we just see all red here. They're both getting out controlled. Diana gets 8% control time. Maria gets 3.5%. And then they give up 32% control time for Belbita, 34% control time for Oliveira. But when they're on the feet at distance, you can see those stats, Brady. Diana Belbita is attempting 22.74 distance strikes attempted per minute spent at distance. That's about as high as it gets. And right below her is Maria Oliveira with 22.08. Diana, for every minute at distance, is landing 9 significant strikes. 8.41 for Maria Oliveira. And they're both landing a lot more than they absorb, too. Their distance striking differentials are both phenomenal. So the way I'm thinking about playing this fight, because I see them being pretty well matched, but if you're on Prize Picks, how about an over for significant strikes? Usually you don't see those overs much over like 75, 80, maybe 85. Well, these ladies would only need about 10 minutes at distance striking range. And neither one of them wrestles much. Diana's got less than 10% control time. Maria Oliveira's got less than 4% control time. So if you can count on both of these ladies to stay at range, I think an over for significant strikes landed would be a good way to play this fight, because they both throw a ton of volume. They both land about almost 9 significant spent at distance, and they both absorb a lot too. Maria's absorbing over 5. Diana's absorbing over 7. So I think that this fight takes place at distance striking range. I think they're both going to throw a ton of volume. Neither one of them has shown a ton of power at the UFC level. Diana Belbita does have 1 knockdown. Maria Oliveira has none. But we just haven't seen Diana much lately. So I don't know who I'm favoring here, but I definitely like the over for significant strikes on Prize Picks.
Yep, I think it's a pretty clear dog or pass situation, a fight where I don't think either fighter deserves to be favored. So for that reason, I'll take Belbita. Money's actually coming in on Maria Oliveira. She's now minus 130, and we have Belbita now plus 110. So I'll pick the dog, but I'm not betting on this fight.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There were a lot of people, arguing about Jinyu Fry and Elise Reed, and it's like, guess what? You're both wrong. The only person who's right is the person who's telling you to stay away. And guess what happened, right? Jinyu Fry kind of won the fight, but then she kind of didn't. So if you wound up, having that good read on Fry, you got screwed. And if you wound up putting a bunch of money on Elise Reed, you kind of made a bad bet because you laid juice. If you got her late, that is. You could have gotten her at plus money earlier. But, this is another one of those fights. Do you really want to be on one side, or do you want to be on the side that says, I'm not taking a money line here?
I want to be on the side that says, I'm not watching this damn fight.
See how easy that was, Brady? Now you can go out and go for a nice walk, get some grass underneath your feet, maybe have a cold glass of lemonade, right? I mean, anything to do something you enjoy, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, did you see me watching the Dante Meza Andre Arlovsky fight? No, I didn't. I don't respect a man who won't take the 50-yard dash challenge from his Uncle Weezy because he knows he's going to get smoked.
Yeah, what people don't understand is we watch so many fights during the week that I don't have to watch Diana Belbita, Maria Oliveira. And by the way, I'll be on a cruise during this card. So yeah, you think I want to waste time and watch this fight? I'll tune into a couple fights, but this is one I'll probably be staying away from. Just don't have much interest in it from any perspective, really. Not saying it's going to be a bad fight. I actually think the fight's going to be okay. It's just I don't really care about it, to be honest.
Yeah, Brady and his wife are going to be doing their Titanic moment on the front of the cruise ship while this fight is on.
Probably be in the casino a little bit.
There you go. Even better.
Blackjack. Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah. There we go. All right, let's move on then. This is a good fight, Weezy. And do you want to know why? It's because it's a Blake Builder fight. This guy is exciting. Kyle Nelson, not so much, but I think Blake Builder is going to bring it out of him. We got Kyle Nelson, 32 years old, 5'11" with a 71-inch reach. Blake Builder, 32 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Same age there. We got Kyle Nelson, 3-inch height advantage, 3-inch reach advantage. Kyle Nelson, he is 3-1 draw in his last 5 fights. Submission loss to Matt Sales. Yes, you're reading that correctly. A knockout win against Polo Reyes, a knockout loss against Billy Quarantillo, a decision loss to Jai Herbert, and then a draw against Doo-Ho Choi. As far as Blake Builder, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He got a submission win first round on the Contender Series, and then a decision win against Shane Young. And yeah, so I went and watched all the tape on Blake Builder, and you'll notice in like all of his fights, he's either getting knocked down, he's getting 10-8'd in rounds, he's getting taken down, he's getting stuck on his back. A lot of his tape is pretty uninspiring, but he's one of those guys that just has that dog in him. I mean, this is a guy that will get hurt, get dropped, get right back up, get in your face, and he'll finish you. I mean, this is a guy that is as tough as they come. Kyle Nelson, I don't know. Kyle Nelson, I think I don't know if this guy's UFC caliber, and it looks like he's kind of changed his style up a little bit. He knows that his gas tank is terrible, and he's tired of gassing out, and that's why he's going in there in his last couple fights and just doing nothing. I mean, against Jai Herbert, he went out there and it looked like he didn't even want to be there. Luckily for him, Jai Herbert didn't want to be there. He went out there against Doo-Ho Choi, didn't really do anything, but luckily for him, Doo-Ho Choi didn't want to do anything. I don't think he's going to get that luxury in this matchup. I think Blake Builder is going to force him to work, force him to do stuff, kind of like Billy Q did. And we see that when Kyle Nelson is pushed, he gasses out, he breaks, he gets finished down the stretch. And I think Builder gets him out of there late. I do think Kyle Nelson probably has some success early, whether that be taking down Builder and winning minutes on top, whether that be knocking down Builder early because Builder gets dropped early a lot. But I just don't think Kyle Nelson's going to be able to do that across 15 minutes. Don't think he has the gas tank to do it, and don't think he has the ability to finish Builder early as well. So I think Builder kind of takes over down the stretch, and I'll be looking at the Builder second and third round props here. I think Builder gets him out of there late. It should be a very fun fight. I know Kyle Nelson's last couple of fights have just sucked. I mean, that Jai Herbert fight sucked. And it sucked even more because I had a big bet on the fight doesn't go to decision, but it sucked, man. I think Blake Builder is going to make this one exciting. Weezy, what do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, I had that fight doesn't go to decision too. And I remember I wasn't watching the fight, but I remember I was watching like the UFC app because I was in a car and I'm like, why are they still fighting? Why are they still fighting? You know, like these guys are both knockout artists. Just fucking throw. And it just kept going and kept going. And I think that was like a minus 260 or some shit.
Yeah.
You know, and that I think that was the bet, Brady, where I started saying, look, if I'm laying minus 175 or more, it's a max bet or nothing at all. Because I need to be, you just can't be laying stuff like that. So many things can go wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And I picked Blake Builder to beat Shane Young, but that was a tall order, dude. That fight was in Australia. So Blake had to make his UFC debut after getting his Contender Series win over Alex Morgan, make that flight all the way over to, Australia, fight in front of a hostile crowd, in front of a local favorite. And he looked good, man. He won 2 out of those 3 rounds. He showed he's ready for this level. But right now, Brady, he's a big favorite, right? He's a big favorite. And here's some things that I'm having problems with. He's 3 inches shorter than Kyle Nelson. He's got a 3-inch reach disadvantage. He's actually older than Kyle Nelson. He's less experienced than Kyle Nelson, and he's fought the much worse level of competition than Kyle Nelson. But he's minus 200 here. And
230 now.
Yeah, okay, minus 230. So this is one of those spots. It's like if you watch the tape on Builder, you're going to be a fan of him. You're going to love watching him fight. You're probably going to root for the dude. And you're going to probably try to find reasons to bet him because it's the kind of fighter you want your money on. You know, if you bet on Blake Builder and he loses, that he's probably getting removed from the cage on a stretcher. You know, he's not going to pull a William Knight on you, and go out there and freeze under the bright lights. This kid's there to fight. He's there to scrap. But, if you do that to Kyle in front of Kyle Nelson hits very hard as well. Local Canadian, this is a Canadian card. So Diana Belbita, even though she's Canadian by way of Romania there. And, neither Dvorak or Erceg is even close to Canadian. But either way, we're going to have to keep an eye on the Canadians on this card. And there are a lot of them. So we've seen some really biased Canadian judging as well. Dude, like the Blake Builder money line is just red flag after red flag after red flag after red flag for me. I am not saying that he's not going to win this fight. I will actually probably pick him to win this fight. But the thought of laying minus 230 on a guy that's older, less experienced, fought the worst level of competition, right? And, and on the road once again, now he's going to be fighting in front of a hostile crowd in Canada instead of in Australia. So, this is, it's going to be a very interesting fight. It's going to be a very fun fight. It probably finishes inside the distance. Maybe Builder gets a knockout here. But like you said, Nelson's not going to be able to do what he did against Choi and Herbert and just kind of like try to point fight. Yeah. Blake Builder's not in those kind of fights. So it's going to be a good one, man. This is going to be a barn burner. Yeah. I like Builder to win it, but God, that money line looks like such a trap to me.
Yeah, it's definitely wide for a guy that does have some serious holes in his game. I think everybody's just under the opinion, like Daz is here saying that Kyle Nelson is a bum.
Dude.
Which is, I can't dispute it that much, but
you're betting against somebody instead of betting on somebody. And when you're laying minus 230, you better be damn sure that Blake Builder is going to go out there and cleanly win 2 of these rounds, maybe, and win moments. But Blake Builder's lost so many moments, and to regional scene competition, so it's just, this is a red flag after red flag. And if this line keeps going, I might even have to just bite my tongue and throw a quarter unit or a half unit on Nelson like I did Imavov last night.
Yeah, Builder definitely loses not only moments but minutes. Like I saw a fight where he was just getting taken down and just had no ability to get back up for like 2-3 rounds. So, we'll see what happens with this one. But the odds actually opened up much wider, believe it or not. So Builder opened up minus 400. Weezy.
What? Dude, that's bizarre. Minus 400 on a guy who's only had 1 UFC fight. Kyle Nelson's a 6-fight UFC veteran. Wow, that's in this economy, Brady.
In this economy. Hilarious, dude. Oh, Mark's. I think this is probably the better way to go.
Yeah,
I think fight doesn't go. I lost money on the Duho Choi Kyle Nelson fight doesn't go easy. I lost money on the Jai Herbert Kyle Nelson fight doesn't go. I might go back to the well here and go with the fight doesn't go. I think it's going to be a much different fight. I think Blake Builder, unlike Duho Choi, unlike Jai Herbert, is going to go in there and fight this guy.
Agreed. Kyle Nelson's 4 of his 6 fights have not went to decision at the UFC, and for Blake Builder did go the distance in his UFC debut. So 57% combined finish rate for these two guys in 7 UFC fights. This might be a fight doesn't go to decision that we can actually get close to even. It might open up around minus 130, minus 140, just from what I'm seeing on my prop template, Brady. And that might not be a bad spot.
Yeah, so the under was minus 140 for a second, but money just came in on it. Looks like it's now minus 165. So I guess they're all over it.
Minus 165. Yeah, I saw. All right, okay.
Yeah, so
It's
that's a
definitely
shame.
getting steamed.
Yeah, so that's a shame. But it opened up minus 200 the under 2.5 rounds. So that's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, so should be a good fight, though. I think it's going to be, like I said, much more exciting than the Kyle Nelson Doo Ho Choi fight and Kyle Nelson Jai Herbert. The pick is Blake Builder, but minus 230 is definitely steep. I see minus 225. I wouldn't lay it there.
Yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's keep moving on. Tim says the draw is live. So how about, can I interest you in a 66-1 draw? Whether that be a Kyle Nelson 10-8 first, which is definitely possible, or maybe a Kyle Nelson 1-2, Blake Builder round 3, 10-8, or maybe a Yambag, shout out to Lubetia. Can I interest you in a 66-1 draw?
That's not bad, man. I mean, I think these guys are going to scrap, but like if you're going to get a draw, you either kind of have to get a point deduction, or you have to have one of those wild fights that probably shouldn't have went to decision, but because it did, there was a 10-8 in there somewhere, and then you got the potential for a draw.
Yeah, and Kyle Nelson did get a draw in his last fight too. Wonder if everybody cashed on that 66-1 in his last fight.
Man, that would have been a ballsy call too. I think I was wanting to bet the fight doesn't go there too, because the Korean Superboy is always in wars too.
Yeah, I think Chris Tognoni probably cashed that draw. I think, wasn't that the fight where Chris Tognoni just took a point for no reason? I think it was like a headbutt on the mat or something. I forget.
Oh yeah,
Doo Ho Choi.
Yeah, Tognoni hates headbutts. I mean, he took one from Gafarov yesterday with that headbutt.
No warning, nothing. Just, hey, taking a point.
Yeah. I warned you in the back about headbutts, nephew. Point.
Yes, I like it. All right, we'll keep moving on. Then we have Arichi Long going against Aiemann Zahabi. We got Zahabi, who's 35 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Arichi Long, 29 years old, 5'7", 69-inch reach. Arichi Long, 6 years younger, 1 inch height disadvantage, but a 1 inch reach advantage. Zahabi, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout loss against Ricardo Ramos, a decision loss against Vince Morales, a knockout win against Draco Rodriguez, and then a decision win against Ricky Tercios. As far as Arichi Long, he's 2-2 in his last 5 fights. So he made his debut against Jeff Molina, lost that fight by decision in a fight where his stock definitely rose. Lost a close fight to Cody Durden, and then knocked out Cameron Ellis. It was Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And then he beat Jay Perrin by decision in a very close fight. So yeah, I went back and watched a tape on Aiemann Zahabi. That Ricky Tercios fight was weird, man. That was the fight where Ricky Tercios attempted like 300 strikes and landed like 30 of them. Remember that fight? Yeah. Like, I don't know what happened in that fight. And then Zahabi only attempted like 105, and he landed like double the strikes of Ricky Tercios. So that was kind of a weird fight. That was the fight where Ricky Tercios was like, come on. And it kind of reminded me of me on senior trip when I went to the strip club in Myrtle Beach, and a stripper came up to me. I was like 18 years old. And she was like, come on. So I hand her $1, and she's like, come on. Another $1. And she's like, come on. I'm like, no more. I've given you enough. Where were we?
We were talking about the Aiemann Zahabi versus Qileng.
So anyway, I don't know, man. Arichi Long training at Fight Ready. I like that. This guy is 29 years old, and he has 3 times the experience of 35-year-old Aiemann Zahabi. Arichi Long is much higher volume than Zahabi. I like that. Arichi Long hits hard, and Arichi Long is tough as nails. Like, I think for Zahabi to win this fight, he's gonna have to do one of 2 things. And both things I just don't think are happening. The first thing I think Zahabi would have to do, who Zahabi is a black belt in BJJ as far as I'm concerned. He's a really good grappler, but he doesn't wrestle at all. He's attempted 6 takedowns. He's only gotten 1 of them. So he's going to go out there and take down Arichi Long. I doubt it. And then the other path to victory for Zahabi, I think, would have to be a knockout, because I don't see him out-voluming Arichi Long across 3 rounds, he just doesn't throw enough. And Arichi Long in 33 fights has never been knocked out. So I think it's a pretty good spot here for Arichi Long. And like I said, I like the fight ready connection there. I think Arichi Long can win this fight by decision just by doing more, and a knockout wouldn't surprise me as well. So I do like Arichi Long here, but we are in Canada, and Zahabi is a Canadian. So and Chris Lee is going to be judging, so you never know. But I like Arichi Long here, Weezy.
Yeah, these guys are complete opposites in terms of their activity. I'm not even joking when I say that there are calendar years where Arichi Long has had as many fights as Aiemann Zahabi has had in the last 10 and a half years. I mean, I don't know why it bugs me so much when I see somebody who's a professional fighter and they've been a professional for 10 years and 6 months and they've got 11 fights. How does that happen? Don't tell me nobody will fight you. Everybody in the bantamweight division would love to get an Aiemann Zahabi fight right now. Yeah. I mean, this is a division full of absolute murderers. As a matter of fact, Qileng is the Mongolian murderer. Okay, so how the hell do you? I mean, like, this guy makes Guram Kutateladze look like an active fighter. Oh. I know that might have been a little bit low. But we will see Guram in the next 3 years, I guarantee you.
Once, yeah.
And Juan Espino retired, by the way, like 3 years after his last fight that he announced, because usually it is about 3 years between Juan Espino fights, and then he retired. He's like, yeah, I was gonna have one more, but nah, So I don't know if Zahabi even shows up. Maybe he does because it's Canada. But his older brother is one of the great coaches of in the history of this young sport, and for us, Zahabi coached the great George St. Pierre. This guy Aiemann Zahabi has been like one of the hottest prospects that Canada has ever had. When he made that debut in the UFC against Reginaldo Vieira, that was people were waiting for that one for a long time. I remember having a big bet on Zahabi. And like halfway through round 3, I remember saying to myself, when is he going to start fighting? And he got gifted that decision. I guess what I'm saying is that my money is going nowhere near an Aiemann Zahabi fight, because I don't think that he's motivated at all to do this. I mean, some guys, like when Arichi Long has had calendar years of 11 fights, and I'm not joking about that. So why not fight a guy like this who just doesn't seem to want to be there at all? And you can see it in his activity. He's a 35-year-old man at this point. He's no longer a prospect, and you got a really hungry kid training at a great camp, but he hasn't fought great competition either, man. I'm going to be staying so far away from this fight because Zahabi, he's looked really good at times. Like, he went out and he just completely knocked out Draco Rodriguez, made it look so easy. And then, he lost the unanimous decision to Vince Morales right before that. He barely beat Reginaldo Vieira and probably got handed that decision because it was in Canada. I have no faith in Aiemann Zahabi, but I'm not the highest on Qileng either.
I think you summed up Zahabi perfectly with this sentence, and I quote, "When is he going to start fighting?" I think that's a perfect way to, because when is he going to start fighting?
Yeah. I mean, even just showing up, it's hard to get the dude to show up. It's like once every 24 months he shows up. And then when he's in the cage, he's so fucking conservative. He's not throwing any. I mean, look at that output. Distance strikes, 7.24 distance strikes attempted per minute spent at distance. Now, Qileng, try to keep him out of the cage. Look at him. He's actually in there fighting. He's throwing 17 distance strike attempts per minute. So, I mean, Zahabi maybe finds a finish if he gets lucky or lands a big shot, or if Qileng makes a mistake on the mat, maybe gives up his back or something like that. But, I mean, Qileng should get this just because he fights. He fights. Yeah. He's going to go out there and look to hurt this dude. And Aimann's going to wait for that one opportunity to get his finish. And he might find it, but
be waiting and waiting and waiting. And and waiting. Knocking out Aoriqi Long is going to be tough. I think he might have to submit him, but Zahabi doesn't wrestle, so I don't know. I think it's a great spot for Aoriqi Long, but
Zahabi doesn't wrestle. He doesn't throw volume. He doesn't fight. He doesn't show.
He loses decisions.
Doesn't.
To Vince Morales. I mean, losing a decision to Vince Morales is inexcusable.
It's rough.
Inexcusable.
Shout out to Jazz. He's showing up.
Yes.
He's doing something. He's fighting for Pub Sports Radio and Stat Diggers.
Appreciate you, Daz. With the dono, he's saying, come on. Come on. That is a true story, by the way. True story. All right. We will move on. Weezy, we have a very solid fight here. We got Miranda Maverick going against the Jasmine. Jasudavicius. We got Maverick, 25 years old, 5'3" with a 65-inch reach. Jasudavicius, she is 34 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. We got Maverick, 9 years younger. Maverick with a 4-inch height disadvantage and a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Miranda Maverick, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Decision win against Jillian Robertson. A decision loss against Macy Barber, Aaron Blanchfield. By the way, she won the Barber fight, but they called it a loss. She submitted Sabrina Mazo, and then she won a decision against Shanna Young. As far as Jasmine Jasudavicius, made her debut against Kay Hansen, lost against Natalia Silva, and they beat Gabriela Fernandez by decision in her last fight. So really wide line here on Miranda Maverick. She's the second biggest favorite on the card, and I can kind of see why. I think Maverick's going to have a ton of advantages in this fight. I think she's going to be younger. I think she's going to be the better striker by a mile, and I don't think it's close at all. And it's not because I think Maverick is the best striker in the world. I don't think she is. It's just I think Jasudavicius is probably one of the worst strikers on the roster. I mean, she was getting outlanded at times by Kay Hansen, if that tells you anything. So whenever this fight's on the feet, Miranda Maverick's going to look very, very good. I think it could even look like the Jojua fight where Maverick was just piecing her up, because I don't think Jasudavicius has anything for Maverick on the feet. And at 34 years old, I don't see Jasudavicius making improvements. Whereas Maverick, with 25 years old, I do see potential improvements that we have seen improvements each and every time she steps in the cage. But Jasudavicius does have a path here, and the path is going to be using that size in wrestling. You know, she's a solid wrestler. If she can get on top of Maverick, maybe she's able to win minutes. I think Maverick's the better grappler overall. So as long as Maverick doesn't get taken down and held down for 2 out of the 3 rounds, she should win this fight. But at minus like 300 something, there's not really much you can do here with Maverick. And minus 315 for Miranda Maverick, not something I really want to do with. I think she wins this fight. She will not be a parlay piece for me, but I'm sure she's going to be a parlay piece for others. And I think it hits, but I think it could be a little bit closer than it does indicate. But I like Maverick here as far as picking a straight winner. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Maverick's 9 or 8 years younger, a little over 8 years younger, and that's big. But with Jasmine, she's old, 34 years old, but she's not shop worn. She's new to the sport, and she has a wrestling base. Silver medalist in the Canadian Games for wrestling, freestyle wrestling. She can wrestle. And here's an interesting stat. If you look at those control time stats, Brady, on the right of the page there, both of these ladies are spending more than 50% of their UFC cage time in control time positions, right? And I think that's very important for this fight, because what you're seeing here is a little bit of a divergence. You see, Miranda Maverick has attempted about as many takedowns as her opponents, 21. Her opponents have attempted 18, and she's about half and half. She's winning 52% of the control time positions that she's in. But you look at Jasmine. You know, she's attempted 17 takedowns. Miranda's attempted 21. Jasmine's opponents have attempted 11. But she's out controlling her opponents 47% to 6%. She's winning 89% of the control time positions. And every UFC fight, Brady, and you're only going to get this kind of information from a stats whiz that has a degree in statistics from the Harvard of the Midwest, Northern Illinois University. Go Huskies. You know, when you see somebody that's dominating those control time positions and they're spending a lot of time there, you can only be in 3 places. You're either in distance striking range, you're in the clinch, or you're on the ground. And both of these ladies are spending more time in the clinch and on the ground than they are at distance striking range, which is where Miranda will have the best opportunity to win minutes, in my opinion. Because Miranda is going to be the better submission grappler. But Jasmine Jasudavicius has shown some really nice submission defense thus far in the UFC. And it's the wrestling, Brady. The wrestling is very good, and the control time once she gets the fight to the ground is excellent. She's using head position on the ground like she's in the clinch. You watch the top of Jasudavicius's head, it's right in the chin of her opponent, no matter whether she's in their guard or in half guard or even in side control. She's controlling the head with her head, using it like a third limb. Jasmine can find ways to win minutes in this fight. I think if I'm on that Miranda Maverick side, Brady, I'm playing her to win by decision. I don't think she's finishing Jasmine. Jasmine's very tough. Jasmine eats a lot of punches with her face, and she's never really looked to be on skates, never really looked to be close to being out of there. Even against Natalia Silva, she was eating a bunch of, big shots, but she never was completely out of that fight. She just lost all the minutes because Natalia was able to stop the takedowns and was able to style on her at distance striking range. So it's going to be a step down in terms of Miranda Maverick is not as good of a striker as Natalia Silva or Gabriela Fernandez. So Jasmine being at home in Canada here in front of those judges, and this fight's probably going to decision. The bookies agree with me there. Jasudavicius by decision, Maverick by decision. Those are the ways that I would play this one. But man, if I could get plus 400 on Jasmine by decision, I'm going to be taking a shot on that because she's a very good minute winner with her grappling. And sometimes when it's a wrestler against a jiu-jitsu player, if you can just stay safe from the submissions, it's often the wrestler that's dictating whether the fight goes to the ground or not.
Yeah, I mean, I have serious concerns about this Maverick money line, even though I would never, the new me would never parlay up Maverick. Maybe the old me would have, back in the day, the Corey McKenna days, the Gina Mazzani days, that me might have thought about it, but the new me would not even think about it. So I'm not touching this fight, but I would caution. I mean, that's a big price tag for Maverick in a fight where Jasudavicius does have a path to victory, but I just think Maverick has a lot more paths to victory. I'd say. I think on the feet, it's Maverick all day, and if she's able to just not get stuck on her back, she should win this fight. So minus 315 from Miranda Maverick. She was like minus 340 for a second. So. And then we have the over under. The over is probably juiced to the max, right? Yeah, the over is minus 350 to the over.
Wow. Ooh. Wow. And Miranda Maverick's got 2 finishes and 4 wins in the UFC.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be laying that. That's a sweaty over when you're laying that kind of juice, man. Even in women's fights, you're usually not laying much more than minus 250.
It is a sweaty juice, but both are tough. So I think it does go over, but minus 350. My goodness, maybe it was because Miranda Maverick just randomly couldn't finish Shayna Young for some reason. Maybe that's why.
That's probably why. But she finished Mazo.
She did, and she finished. Shout out Luke Jojua.
With that cut on the nose. Yeah, that was rough.
Nasty.
Yeah, I watched that fight yesterday. That was That was a good striking performance by Maverick. That was her debut, right? That was her debut against Shotula?
I think so.
Yeah. That was a nasty cut on poor Liana.
Yeah. Footwork Maverick is not Silva's. That's a hot take there.
Yeah.
No, you're right. They're not even in the same scent. I mean, it's not even close. But with that said, I still think Maverick's a much better striker than Jasudavicius. Jazz by Mauling Wrestling. Hey, it's on the table, and you're getting a big price tag on that Jasudavicius money line. Both have never been finished yet. Both are very, very tough, very durable. We got Daz, very generous. Another donation saying, hit the like, boys. Come on, I like it. Let's get those likes up. See if we can maybe get close to 100 by the time we get out of here. Miranda Maverick money line is a red flag. Yeah, I mean, minus 315 is a red flag to me, but we'll see what happens there. All right, we'll keep moving on. We have a really good fight here. We got Nassourdine Imavov going against Chris Curtis. We got Imavov, 28 years old, 6'3", with a 75-inch reach. Chris Curtis, 35 years old, 5'10", with a 75-inch reach. Imavov, 7 years younger, going to have a 5-inch height advantage, same reach there. Imavov, he has 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision loss against Phil Haas, close fight there. Knockout win against Ian Heinisch. Knockout win against Edmund Shabazian. A decision win against Joaquin Buckley. And then a decision loss against Sean Strickland. Chris Curtis is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Brendan Allen. Decision win against Rodolfo Vieira. decision loss against Jack Hermanson, knockout win against Joaquin Buckley, and a decision loss to Kelvin Gastelum. And what I thought was funny, Weezy, was, man, Chris Curtis was on top of the world for a second. Like, people started to love this guy. He was the fan favorite. And then all of a sudden, people hate him now. Like, people really hate Chris Curtis. After the Jack Hermanson fight, when he was flipping the bird against him, people didn't like that. And then people apparently didn't like him complaining about the Kelvin Gastelum situation. So it was like Chris Curtis slander for like a straight week after that Kelvin Gastelum performance. So he went from like a fan favorite to like one of the most hated fighters in the UFC, it seems like. Like, people really don't like Chris Curtis. We got a close fight here, and I think it is going to play out very, very close. I did land on the Nassourdine Imavov side, and the reason is this. I think it's a close fight. I think it goes to decision. Both these guys are just next level tough, next level durable. But what I don't like about Chris Curtis is he's a very slow starter. In the Kelvin Gastelum fight, just looked like he took the round off a little bit in the first round, took him a little bit to get going. Same thing in the Buckley fight. He lost the first round, on volume. Yeah. Same thing in the Phil Haas fight early. He was, losing cleanly, through the first like 3.5 minutes, finds a knockout. I mean, it's going to be hard to win fights at this level if you take off the first round. So I think for that reason, Imavov probably does win the first round just by default, just by Chris Curtis getting a little bit longer to get started. And then I think the second and third round are going to be pretty close and pretty competitive. I don't see either guy having success with the wrestling. Chris Curtis, maybe back in the day, I thought his takedown defense might have been an issue. Nowadays, it's not. His takedown defense is phenomenal. 100% to be exact, stuffing 35 takedowns. So yeah, I think we got a fight that plays on the feet. I think it goes to decision, and I think it's going to be left in the hands of the crooked judges. So yeah, I like Imavov, but he is a slight favorite here, and laying a juice in a fight that's going to be close, that's going to the judges, is not something I really want to do. But as far as a pick, I do like him. Weezy, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun striker's delight. I don't really think either one of these guys is going to – I mean, maybe Imavov will go for takedowns here, but I don't know why. I mean, it's going to be so hard to get Chris Curtis down. And like you said, you can win that first round at a pretty good clip off of Chris, because – he's kind of like he reminds me of Peter Yan a little bit, in that he's such a good striker. He's so good with his counters that he just needs to kind of find out, be in front of his opponent for about 3-4 minutes, see what it is, what they're offering, download the information, and then start to figure out how to find your way in. And Chris finds his way in. I mean, almost every damn time he finds his way in. And Imavov, though, is so slick and he's so fat. I mean, he's going to be the faster guy here. He's going to be I'm surprised he's not longer. Chris Curtis has got a long reach for a dude who's 5'10" with 75 inches, because I just expected Imavov, being 5 inches taller, to have a much longer reach, but he doesn't. And both of these guys are fairly low volume, actually. Imavov only throws 11.31 distance strikes per minute spent at distance, and is basically the same number for Curtis. And both of these guys are landing less than what they absorb. Chris Curtis absorbs 1.47 more strikes at distance per minute than he lands. And for Nassourdine Imavov, it's 0.85. So they're both going to be a little bit dependent on winning moments here. This is going to be a greasy fight, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a very close fight. It probably does go to decision, as Chris Curtis is just virtually impossible to finish. And Imavov has been subbed once, but Chris Curtis is not subbing anybody. Oh, he does have one win by submission in his career, 3% sub rate. So, I think that, if this fight, I think that this fight is going to go to the scorecards. I wonder where they have it right now. I've got my prop template up here. The last that I saw for the over 2.5 was minus 175. So it's juiced. I'm not surprised. I think both of these guys are very durable. So that maybe is something that's a little bit too juicy for me to bet on, but I think it's going to be a very close fight. I think that these guys are both very talented strikers, and I think it's going to go to decision. I'm going to favor one Christopher Curtis, I think, on this one, Brady. But like I say, it's one of those fights, kind of like last week, where I was non-committal, because I think that these guys are very well matched.
Yep, a very well matched fight. A fight that goes the distance. The judges are going to screw it up, and then people are going to cry robbery. We can't wait to see it on Saturday. Yeah, where is this line now? Oh my gosh, money's pouring in on Imavov. Oh my gosh, wow. I could have swore he's like minus 115 yesterday, but no, he's opened up minus 120, went to minus 115. He's now minus 150.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot, because opening minus, and then he was sitting at minus 115 for it looks like about a day and a half.
Yeah,
And then
Curtis
minus
now plus
122.
135. Chris, he's plus 135. Curtis.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think these guys. I mean, do you see it kind of like the same that these guys are very well matched?
Oh, very. I just don't like the fact that Chris Curtis loses the first round.
That is a problem. That is definitely a problem. But
if he was a fast starter, I mean, I think the plus 135 would be something I'd look at, and even. I think it should be closer to a pick. I just think people really hate Curtis. I think that's what it is. Like, they really hate this guy now.
And what's interesting too is that Chris Curtis is like he does a podcast now with Sean Strickland. I mean, it's not like, and that's the last opponent for Imavov. So that's something that's in the back pocket that Sean can tell him, hey, you got to watch out for this. You got to watch out for this. But Chris and Sean have very different styles. Sean's first. Sean goes first. Sean marches forward. Sean stays behind a jab. Chris waits to counter. He needs to be in the pocket, and he can't really chase you down. Sean will walk you down. Chris Curtis isn't going to do that. So this is an interesting stylistic matchup for sure.
Oh, yeah. And it's a good fight as well. I like it.
Yeah. Very good fight.
All right, Weezy. I do want to double check. So that Dawkins fight is off. I do want to check to see where this pay-per-view starts. So everybody, this is the pay-per-view we're paying for this week. So we're all going to pay $70 plus tax to watch Eryk Anders, Marc-André Barriault, which is I mean, it's an okay fight, but is it a pay-per-view worthy fight, Weezy, do you think?
I mean, Imavov Curtis should be there, right?
Yeah, but it's that's the featured prelim, I guess.
Yeah, and they like to have that prelim that sells you the pay-per-view. So a lot of times they'll put a fight that probably should be a pay-per-view fight as that featured prelim to get people fired up so that they want to buy it.
Yep, so I agree. I think Curtis Imavov is a really good fight. Should probably be on the main card. We got to pay for Nunes Aldana. I love the Oliveira. I think the Oliveira Dariush fight probably does make it all worth it. And then the Mike Malott Fugitt fight. I think it's one of those under radar fights that I'm really looking forward to, but I feel like a lot of people are just crapping on this main card, which I get it, but I think a lot of these fights are going to play out pretty fun.
Yeah, for sure. And it's what a shame that we lost Roundtree Dawkins. I was looking forward to seeing Chris Dawkins at 205 and a boxer versus kickboxer matchup. That was going to be a fun one, dude.
I know it's always fun seeing whether or not Bangkok Khalil Roundtree will show up or not, because sometimes he shows up and looks like Bangkok, Thailand, Khalil Roundtree, just pissed off, and you can tell before the fight's about to start if he has that look in his eye, he's going to go out there and beat some ass, or he shows up and loses a decision to Marcin Prokhnio.
Man, that was.
Like what?
Like I said, I remember that look on his face when that decision was being read, and you could tell that Khalil was like, "Man, I fucked this up so bad. Please just bail me out. Please just bail me out." Marcin Prokhnio, and then the look on his face, like, "Oh, I can't. They're not. Oh no, like he knew he completely dropped the ball on that one. But that was Fight Island, and some people go and they perform like absolute trash at Fight Island, and maybe Roundtree was just a victim. And talk about a victim. We're going to talk about the worst victim to Khalil Roundtree in his life is poor Eryk Anders. If they called me up, I'd be like, I'll fight anybody. Just please don't let Khalil Roundtree be there. I don't ever want to see that dude in person in the same room with me again. That dude took my soul.
Dude, that's actually where Bangkok Roundtree made his debut. They were talking about, he went to Thailand for a couple months, and he shows up, just looks completely different. He knocked down Anders 4 times in that fight. I mean, it was destruction.
And Anders showed some of the most toughness, like that fight. He took an ass beating. I mean, that was a dick saw and ass shaving, combined. It was the worst. And he made it to the goddamn scorecards. I don't know how.
I mean, he's tough. I mean, both these guys are tough. So should be a fun fight here. We got Marc-André Barriault going against Eryk Anders. We got Barriault, 33 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. We got Eryk Anders, 36 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Barriault, 3 years younger, same height, and Anders with a 1-inch reach advantage. Marc-André Barriault is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Dolce Langambula, a knockout loss against Chidi Njokwani, submission win against Jordan Wright, submission loss against Anthony Hernandez, and then a knockout win against Julian Marquez. As far as Eryk Anders, he has 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. No contest against Darren Stewart, a decision win against Darren Stewart, a submission loss against Andre Muniz, a decision loss against Jung Young Park, and a knockout win against Kyle Dawkins. And I kind of feel like this fight's going to look a little bit like that Jung Young Park fight where Anders went in there and he wrestled a ton. Like Eryk Anders went out there and attempted like 24 takedowns. I think he was only able to get like 4 of them, and he wasn't really able to control Jung Young Park, but he went in there with a game plan to wrestle, and he implemented that game plan. He stuck to the game plan, but was just not able to have enough success to wrestle Park across 3 rounds. I think he's going to have to do that here because on the feet, Marc-André Barriault has very, very good volume, landing almost 6 significant strikes per minute compared to Anders' 3.39. I just think it's going to be hard for Anders to A, knock out Barriault, which is going to be very tough to do, or B, just outpace him, out volume, especially across 15 minutes where Barriault seems to get better as that fight goes on. So I do expect Anders to wrestle. I just don't know if he's going to have success taking down Barriault first of all and then holding him down because Anders doesn't really seem to be able to hold down anybody. So I do like the Marc-André Barriault side here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, if you look at those control time stats underneath Anders' name, you're going to see a lot of green, which means he's out controlling his opponents. He has above average control time for, and he's got below average control time against. And you see the opposite over there on the Barriault side. Barriault, especially in the Hernandez fight, and in fights when he first got into the UFC, when he was new to the UFC, was getting wrestled a lot by his opponents. They didn't want to be on the feet because when you're on the feet with Mark, he's throwing a ton of volume. He's marching forward. He's very durable, and he doesn't fuck off. And those kind of fighters, you get sick of it. You want to just take them down. They'll force you to grapple even if that wasn't plan A a lot of the time because the pressure is so difficult to deal with. And you could see it in the numbers, you guys. If you look at Marc-André Barriault at distance, landing 5.76 out of 14.72 attempts per minute. Anders lands 3.11 and only attempts 7.87. And Eryk does have 7 knockdowns in 15 fights. But, Barriault's got 2 in 10, so it's not like Barriault's doesn't have power. Anders has got power. He's got 4 knockout wins at the UFC level. So he's definitely, when he's finishing opponents, it's via the knockout. He's not really a submission guy in the UFC, at least. But I like Barriault's pressure. I like the volume that he throws. And I think that while this fight is on the feet, while Anders might be landing some big shots, Barriault's going to be probably durable enough to eat them. And I think he's going to be the one walking forward. I think he's going to be the one doing the work. Eryk Anders is no longer at fight ready. I don't remember hearing if he went to the MMA lab or not. But if anyone in the chat knows, please let us know where Anders is training. But I think I did see that he left fight ready.
What if he flipped the script and went to Thailand with Khalil Rountree?
Oh, wow. That would be interesting, because then this would be a striking match, and it would be the power of Anders against the volume and the pressure of Barriault, which would make it a very interesting stylistic matchup. But I kind of feel like Anders is going to wrestle here. He just saw Hernandez, do that to him. And, we saw Barriault kind of really pressure Marquez and break Marquez, which was very impressive.
Yeah, Weezy, he's training in Philly with our guys, looks like Joe Pfeiffer, Pat Sabatini, Jeremiah Wells, I think Julian Marquez, and then Andre Petrosky.
Is he looking for submissions?
Yeah, he's training.
Is he going to be looking for submissions? Training with those Philly boys, man? They like to choke people. They like to strangle people. That could be interesting because we've seen Eryk wrestle a lot. And going from fight ready, where you're going to get that cage wrestling, where you're going to get that grimy type of wrestling that really is very functional at the UFC level. And now if he can combine that kind of training with the submission grappling, once he gets fights to the ground, training with guys like, Pfeiffer and Petrosky and those guys, that's a good skill set, and Eryk's a great athlete too. So this could be a very interesting fight. I don't know which Eryk Anders we're going to get. I mean, the fact that he's training at a new camp is very exciting because we could see the next version of Eryk Anders here. We saw the guy that was kind of like a low volume striker with a ton of power when he first came in. Then he started to mix in the wrestling. He's already a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, so if he could start fishing for submissions now a little bit, Eryk has attempted, I think, one submission in his entire UFC career. It's 0.08 per 15 minutes.
Randy Brown's there as well. I mean, they got a lot going on over there, apparently.
Dude, Julian Marquez is there? I thought Julian Marquez was over at Factory X. Maybe he switched.
I don't know, because
all these old glory guys have got to find some place to go now.
Yeah, I mean, Eryk Anders, he tagged Julian Marquez in the picture.
Okay.
He's not in the picture, but he's tagged in the photo for some reason.
Huh, and that's weird.
It is weird. But everybody else is in the photo, like Randy Brown. I see Pat Sabatini, Joe Pfeiffer, Wells. Brady's there. He's just not in the picture as well. So yeah, he's trained with some really good guys. So the game plan's confirmed then for Eryk Anders.
It's probably going to be grappling, yeah, because you don't go to those guys to because if you're trying to take those dudes' heads off, you're just going to wind up with your ass on the mat and you're and a bicep underneath your chin. So that's no fun.
No. So the over 2.5 minus 160, the under 2.5 plus 130. I think the last over I hit, which, as you know, I never bet overs, but the last over, what's going on outside my house? Hopefully everything's all right out there. The last over I hit was on that Julian Marquez, Marc-André Barriault. I had the over 1.5 and it was sweaty. I was in the arena. I couldn't watch it. I can't watch overs, but that hit, both guys were very tough. I kind of feel like it's the same thing here, but I feel like Eryk Anders is much tougher, much more defensively sound, has much more better cardio than Julian Marquez. So I think the over 2.5 hits. But I remember getting that over 1.5 in the Marquez Barriault fight at like minus 130, like a crazy price for some reason.
Yeah, because these guys, they do knock people out, but with Marquez especially, because he has 100% finish rate, but they're both so durable too, It's just that Marquez has been so defensively flawed that he eats so many more punches than he should.
Yep, and Mindy's definitely not listening to that crap. Anders will get smashed up here. So,
hey, it's a great fight. These are middleweights, so even the winner gets smashed up.
But yeah, I like Barriault here. The camp change doesn't really affect my opinion, but minus 152. He was like minus 135, minus 152. I don't know. Any thoughts on the line? Any thoughts on the over under?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the overs, but it's a little bit juiced here, and both of these guys can finish. And if Anders is going to have any submissions in his back pocket, that kind of changes things. But it's a great fight. I'm kind of leaning Barriault because Eryk has not been the most accurate wrestler, so to speak. He'll go for the takedowns, but is he getting them, And that's a problem. We saw Jun Young Park stopping a lot of takedowns, and Barriault's bigger than Park.
Oh, yeah. TNT saying he's picking all the Canadians. Yeah, we have a lot of Canadians on this Canadian card. We have Mike Malott, he's Canadian. Marc-André Barriault, he's Canadian. Jasmine Jasudavicius, Canadian. Zahabi, Canadian. Kyle Nelson, Canadian. I think Belbita is a little Canadian as well. I think she's either training in Canada or something, but I think we have
she lives there. She lives there. She's from Romania, but she came to Canada to train. So
yeah. we got 6 Canadians on this card. I like it.
Yes, sir.
All right, Weezy, let's keep moving on. We have what could be. I mean, this is my pick for fight of the night if the Dariush Oliveira fight was not happening, because that's probably gonna be the fight of the night. But this is a very, very good fight here. We got Dan Ige going against Nate Landwehr. We got Dan Ige, 31 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Nate Landwehr, 34 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. Dan Ige, 3 years younger, 2-inch height disadvantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Dan Ige is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Gavin Tucker. decision loss against Korean Zombie, Josh Emmett, Mosver Evloev, and then a knockout win against Damon Jackson. Nate Landwehr is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Darren Elkins, knockout loss against Julian Erosa, submission win against Klein, decision win against Onama, and then a submission win against Austin Lingo. So this is a fight where I just think it's funny, taking a look at the line, like MMA fans switch up so quickly. Like, it was just last fight where Dan Ige was only like -120 against Damon Jackson, which I think is hilarious. And now he's like -250 here against Nate Landwehr. So people are apparently back on the Dan Ige train. Speaking of train, that Nate Landwehr is this guy's solid. He has that dog in him as well. Both guys have that dog in them. Both guys are very tough here. I think it's going to be a dog fight, and I kind of see it being like close and competitive. I think you have to favor Danny Ige due to the level of competition. It's not even close whatsoever. And we saw when he took a step down in competition against Damon Jackson, he handled him accordingly. But, Nate Landwehr is higher volume. He's going to do a lot more. Nate Landwehr, I think, and maybe mixing some takedowns. He's completing takedowns at a 62% accuracy. I think this could be a potential close fight here with it going the distance because both guys are so tough. And if this fight does finish, it's probably Nate Landwehr getting knocked out. Weezy, really good fight here. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think if there is a finish, it's going to be Ige hitting hard and knocking out Landwehr. But Landwehr, if you get sloppy shooting in on this dude, his front chokes, I never knew they were that good. He had Klein. He got Klein with that front choke, but he had Klein in the front choke in the second round too. And I thought he was going to finish that one, and he just missed it. And then he wore Klein down a little bit more, and he got that Darce in the third. Same way he finished Lingo, if I remember correctly. So this guy Landwehr is just so much fun to watch, man. I mean, let's face it, he's got a highlight reel like Evel Knievel. He's got swagger like Elvis Presley, and I'll be damned if he ain't handsome. And he's going out there and being constantly in exciting fights where he just absolutely throws down. And Nate's takedown defense is phenomenal. He's really good there. He's got 8 takedown attempts this Landwehr, and his opponents have attempted 22, and he still wins almost 69% of the control time positions that he's in. And we've seen Ige mix in those takedowns a lot. 50 takedown attempts in 13 fights. He's gotten 22% of them, but only 11% control time. He does seem to be happy to be on the feet, and I think Nate will be fine there. He's going to be throwing more volume, but it's definitely going to be Ige that has that one-touch power. We've seen it a couple of times. If he lands, it's over fast. Ask Gavin Tucker, another Canadian. What happens when this dude lands? You go to the land of wind and ghosts, and so I'm really liking this fight. I think that it's going to be mostly a striking match, so I have to favor Ige because I think not only can he potentially win the minutes on the feet, but the moments as well. It's just once this starts to get into like an up and down grappling match and like both dudes just swinging in the pocket, I think that's eventually when Landwehr starts getting the fight that he wants. And if he doesn't get clipped, I think the further this thing goes, we could see Nate getting better as the fight goes on. But Dan Ige is such a dog. I don't think anybody's ever finishing him. Maybe, like a big bet on the Ige finish only prop because nobody's finishing Dan Ige might be a good way to play this one. But the line is a little bit wide on just the money line here. I don't think I should lay that kind of juice on a Dan Ige money line. Not against Nate Landwehr.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think you have to favor Ige. But -250, it's kind of confusing to me. Nate Landwehr is currently +210. The over-under is 2.5. The over 2.5 is only -143, which I think is interesting. I guess Ige could potentially knock out Landwehr. But Landwehr is tough. I know somebody in the chat said he's chinny. I mean, the shots that did knock him out, I think were both flying knees.
Yes,
I mean,
they were.
Flying knees hurt, Weezy.
I've heard. I'm really glad I don't know that personally, because I never wanted to get kneed in the face. It was never a goal.
Yeah. So I think both guys are tough. I wouldn't hate the over, but it's going to be sweaty. I mean, I think these guys are going to go to war. So
yeah,
probably a pass fight for me. Nothing really sticking out, to be honest. But I do think that line's a tad wide.
I think it's a tad wide as well. Maybe a Nate Landwehr by submission prop at like 10 or 12 to 1 might be a cheeky way to play this. Because like I said, that front choke series, can't tough guy a choke, as my guy Liam says. You need to breathe. The brain always needs blood. So maybe you can find a choke if Ige gets sloppy on a takedown attempt.
Yeah, I cashed the Nate Landwehr sub-2 last time out against Austin Ling. It was probably the happiest I've ever been. Like, I threw my phone across the room.
You called me shortly thereafter.
Yeah. I was running around. I mean, I was so happy.
What was that, 26 to 1 you hit on that or something?
Yeah, it was something wild. It was the biggest prop I've ever hit.
That's a nice one.
And I get excited about those big props, man. Like, I remember hitting I think it was Tai Tuivasa first round knockout prop against Stefan Struve. It was only like 4 to 1, but still, I was super happy jumping around, running around. I mean, those big props are fun to hit.
Dude, when you get the round and the method correct, it's a great feeling.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So another good fight here. I think it's one of the better fights on the entire card. Moving on, we got a very underrated fight here. We got Mike Malott going against Adam Fugitt. We got Mike Malott, 31 years old, 6'1" with a 73-inch reach. Fugitt, 34 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. Mike Malott, 3 years younger, same height, and Fugitt with a 4-inch reach advantage. Mike Malott, he's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Mickey Gall in his debut. He got a submission win on the Contender Series, and then he submitted Johan Lioness in his last fight out. Adam Fugitt made his debut against Michael Morales, I believe on short notice, lost that fight by knockout, and then knocked out Kinoshita in his last fight there. So what's funny about Mike Malott, Weezy, is you can go and watch his entire career in 10 minutes, maybe. Like, you can go and watch this guy's fights like that. He is in, he is out, he never fights, but when he does, he fights for about a minute or two. Mike Malott is super dangerous anywhere the fight goes. His grappling is just top notch. Like we saw on the Contender Series fight, that dude shot in on him, snatched up a neck right away. We saw he was able to get on top of Johan Lioness, and he was able to submit him shortly after that. And then the power Mike Malott possesses, a ton of power on the feet, able to go out there and get knockouts, knocked out Mickey Gall bad. So yeah, Mike Malott's just a problem, dangerous anywhere the fight goes. The problem with Mike Malott is just there's some question marks. What happens when Mike Malott gets to the second round? This guy has a 100% finish rate, all of those wins coming in the first round, and he has a 1 loss by knockout coming in the first round. So, if this guy does get extended, what's his cardio going to look like? We don't know. And, if this does get extended and he does slow down, you don't want to slow down against a guy like Adam Fugitt. So what I like here more than anything is the violence aspect of this fight. Of course, BetOnline opened up the most piss poor prop I've seen in a while. They said, we're not even bothering setting it at 1.5. Let's set it to 2.5, and let's just juice that 2.5 to minus 245. So they're all over it. The fight doesn't go is going to be something wild, but I think it's a potential parlay piece this week. And the under 1.5 is not out yet, but I still think the under 1.5 is probably the way to go, because Mike Malott has 11 fights, 10 of them finishing in the first round. I think the other one went to a draw. So I like violence here more than anything. Don't know if I'd lay this big chalky price tag on somebody at Mike Malott, who I do have some concerns about the striking defense, the chin, the cardio potentially. But in terms of a pick, I'll say he does finish Fugitt in the first round. But if he gets extended, it's going to get very interesting very fast, I think. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, the thing about Malott is we really don't know anything about him. Like, I've got questions. Like, this guy is such an amazing prospect. He's so incredibly talented. Every time you see this guy fight and win, you're like, holy shit, that was perfect, And yeah, a 12-year career with 11 fights. And 10 of those fights, 19 minutes. He's got his entire 12-year career in mixed martial arts spans 34 minutes of cage time. So I can't lay juice on a guy that I literally know nothing about in the cage. I know that he goes out there and he finds moments and he fucking wins them. But what happens if he doesn't? What then? He went to a draw with a guy that's 5-4. In Bellator some years back. Also, if you only fight 11 times in 12 years, there's got to be some shit going on behind the scenes. In massive injury problems. Maybe he just hates fighting. Maybe he'd just rather coach. Maybe he's got anxiety about getting in there. I mean, but they're all questions that you have to ask. What do we really know about this kid? And with Fugitt, he's got as many pro fights as Malott, 12 fights, but half the length of the career. He's got a 6-year career. We've seen him as many times in the UFC as we've seen Malott. And from what we've seen from Fugitt, I mean, he went out there on short notice against a killer in Michael Morales, who's going to have a very bright future in the UFC. And, you know, he handled himself all right in that fight. He got finished late, but and then he goes out there and, you know, as a big underdog against Kinoshita, who's a really hot prospect, and he went out there and made quick work of him. Throws a lot of head kicks. He mixes in the wrestling. He throws a ton of volume. He scraps. This dude comes out to fight. So I don't know, man. I think the under 1.5 is probably something that I would consider playing, and like I would in any Mike Malott fight, because of the way that he fights. And I think if I was betting on Malott, I would just go like a same game parlay, like under 1.5 rounds and the win, and just play it like that, because like you said, there's no evidence that this guy's even going to win minutes. I mean, he could, but how would you know? How many minutes has he won? He's only got 34 minutes of professional cage time. And, you know, and he's won 9 fights in that time. And he's been knocked out once, and he's got a draw where, you know, he did nothing for the last 2 rounds of the fight. So it's one of those things. We're missing a lot of information. And I'd like to have more information about Fugitt at the UFC level, but there's only 2 fights in 15 minutes for him as well. So I like the under. I think it's going to be a super fun fight. I always look forward to seeing Mike Malott fight, because from what I have seen and the little that I have seen, the kid's phenomenal. He's got great grappling. He's got solid striking. He seems to be able to put it all together. Great guillotine. He finishes fights, man. Those guys are fun to watch. I wish we could see a lot more of Mike Malott. I wish he would fight a lot more, because he's already 31 years old. You know, this is going to pass him by if he keeps fighting once every 18 months. Well,
we'll see him fight this Saturday, hopefully, you know, knock on wood, and then we'll see him get to fight again in 2026.
That's right. And I'll be looking forward to it, and I'll be there with a candle being like, give us another 1.5 minutes of your best, Mike.
I like it. But yeah, so the under 1.5 is something I'll be looking at. The fight doesn't go, something I'll be looking at, but they open up, like I said, the under 2.5 is -245, which I'm sure nobody's betting, because that's just that's an opener. Like, that's an atrocious opener at -245. So nobody's betting that, and they shouldn't bet that. The Mike Malott money line -205, and then he actually opened up -337, believe it or not. And then Fugitt opened up at +277, currently +175. So yeah, I like violence here, and that's what I'll be looking at for this week.
Yeah, I'll be looking at it as well. I'm going to see where that fight doesn't start round 2 or the under 1.5 opens. And if it looks good according to the numbers, I'll probably take a shot on that.
Sounds good. All right. We have 2 fights left. We got the co-main event, which is probably the best fight. It's the best fight on the card. We got Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush. We got Charles Oliveira, 33 years old, 5'10" with a 74-inch reach. Beneil Dariush, 34 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. We got Oliveira 1 year younger, same height, and we got Oliveira with a 2-inch reach advantage. Charles Oliveira is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Tony Ferguson, a knockout win against Michael Chandler, submission win against Dustin Poirier, submission win against Justin Gaethje, and then a submission loss against Islam Makhachev. As far as Beneil Dariush, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, knockout win against Drakkar Klose, knockout win against Scott Holtzman, decision win against Carlos Diego Ferreira, a decision win against Tony Ferguson, and then a decision win against Mateus Gamrot. And yeah, a lot of people are on Beneil Dariush this week, which kind of scares me. This line's getting away a little bit, but I think stylistically, it's a pretty good matchup for him. I think Dariush is absolutely the better striker in this matchup. I love the volume. I love the power that he brings to the table. But Charles Oliveira is super dangerous wherever this fight goes. I just don't see Charles being able to dictate where this fight takes place, where I feel like Dariush will be able to, because Charles Oliveira is not going out there and taking down Dariush. It's just not happening. Oliveira does tend to pull guard. He pulled guard against Gaethje, even pulled guard against Islam Makhachev, which I thought was very interesting. I don't know if he's going to pull guard here against Dariush, but that would be the only way he does get this fight down to the mat. I think we get a fight that does take place on the feet for the most part. I guess I could see Dariush going for takedowns here or there, winning minutes on top, but I think Dariush can go out there and knock out Charles Oliveira. Like, Oliveira is getting dropped a concerning amount of time. He got dropped by Michael Chandler. He got dropped by Dustin Poirier. He got dropped by Justin Gaethje like 3 times in the span of 2 minutes. He got dropped by Islam Makhachev. I think Charles Oliveira's chin is very, very concerning, and Dariush hits hard. I was watching tape on this the Dariush and Gamrot fight, and Dariush landed just a huge shot in the 3rd round, dropping Mateus Gamrot, who's tough as nails. And it was such a big shot that I had to show my wife. I was like, look at this. Can you believe he ate that? And she was like, no, I can't believe he ate that. I mean, it was a huge shot. I mean, you could hear it. And if he lands that big shot against Charles Oliveira, I don't think he's getting back up. I like Dariush to knock out Charles Oliveira, but you can't be too confident, because Oliveira is one of the most dangerous guys in the UFC, like pound for pound, one of the most dangerous guys. He's dangerous wherever it takes place. He has very sneaky power, and we have seen Dariush clipped and knocked out a lot. We've seen him hurt a lot. And Charles Oliveira has the power to hurt him here. So I like Dariush, but this line's getting a little bit away from my liking. I think violence is the way to go. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight? Very good fight here.
Yeah, I can't wait for this fight, man. I mean, I don't even know if I want to gamble on it, because I just want to sit there like a child on Christmas Eve, like waiting for the magic to happen, because these guys are such awesome fighters. Now, when I think Charles Oliveira is really at his most dangerous is when he's the better grappler, because his striking style is really difficult to deal with when Charles is the better grappler, because good grapplers don't ever have to care about getting taken down, right? So they can just march forward. They could throw the fucking kitchen sink at you. And somebody like Charles, who's so comfortable in his own guard, that he can get submissions from there. He's been a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player since he was yay high. His first UFC win came against Darren Elkins, one of the only people to ever submit Darren Elkins in his entire career. Caught him with a triangle choke about 3 seconds after Elkins took him down. But Dariush is not at a grappling deficit to anyone, So Charles' pressure style could just be a poor defensive style against as skilled of a striker as Dariush. But God, isn't recency bias a bitch, Brady? This guy Dariush is just coming off a massive injury, a spiral fracture to his lower leg, where he had the really long layoff between the Ferguson and the Gamrot fights. Beneil Dariush could have been had at plus 170. Versus Gamrot. And let me tell you something. I picked Dariush that week. Everybody was on Gamrot, right? And now you got a guy who's a better striker than Gamrot, a better submission grappler than Gamrot, not a better wrestler than Gamrot, but that doesn't really matter. And now Dariush is the favorite, this recency bias is a lot for me. I kind of feel like I have to go with the Oliveira side, because we've seen so many times that Drakkar close fight for Dariush, he doesn't mind getting into the knockdown, drag out affairs. And if you think Charles Oliveira is chinny, then what the hell is Beneil Dariush? He's been knocked out in 3 of his 4 UFC losses and submitted in the other.
I called Dariush a little bit chinny, and somebody got really mad at me. Like, they went off on me because I said that.
Yeah, well, he is. I mean, when you lose 100% of your fights by submission or knockout, if you're getting finished, then you're kind of chinny. It's just how it goes. And Oliveira's been finished in 8 out of 9 losses. Dariush, 4 out of 4 losses. This fight's going 5 rounds. I mean, fight doesn't go to decision. It's got to be a parlay piece this week. I don't know where they're going to open it. It might be like minus 750 or something like that when they open it. But this thing is going to finish inside the distance. But Dariush can win minutes with his wrestling, and he might even take down Charles and just try to stay safe from the submission attempts to win minutes if the pressure is bothering him. But man, look, I don't know who's going to win this fight, but if you told me I had to take a money line, I'm taking Oliveira.
There you go. Yeah, I'm definitely the opposite side, but this line just getting away a little bit. Like Beneil Dariush is now minus 145. He was like minus 115 for a second. So I don't know if I'll be touching the money line. But what I do like is violence first and foremost. And the under 2.5 right now is minus 160. I think that's very generous. And by the way, Weezy, this is a 3-round fight.
It is a 3-round fight. I thought that they were going 5. My bad. Okay. That changes the fight doesn't go to decision because you never know if Dariush can get takedowns and win minutes. So that I guess it could go to decision then. But 5 rounds, there'd be no way in hell.
Yeah, 5 rounds, that's where we'd get the minus 700. But even in 3 rounds, I still really do like violence. Minus 160 for the under 2.5, I think is more than generous. But I'm going to sit back and wait and see what the other books get out. Some props out here. Give me Dariush to get the finish here. But yeah, really good fight. My favorite fight on the card by a mile.
This is going to be such a banger. I cannot wait for that fight.
All right. So what we're going to do now is talk about this main event. It feels like we just talked about the main event, though.
Yeah, I think that is the main event, but this is the title fight, so they're gonna tell us that this is the main event. But I'll bet you some TVs even get turned off.
Yeah.
After that Dariush Oliveira fight. But this is Amanda Nunes. It's Amanda Nunes. She's the greatest female fighter of all time.
And I'm a huge Amanda Nunes fan. My favorite WMA fighter. But what's interesting is I'm not really excited for this fight. I wasn't really excited for the Pena fight, but I'm actually less excited for this Aldana fight. But it is a fight that is going to happen. We got Amanda Nunes, 35 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. Aldana, 35 years old, 5'9" with a 68-inch reach. Same age there. Nunes, 1-inch height disadvantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Amanda Nunes, 4-1 in her last 5 fights. A decision win against GDR, decision win against Spencer, submission win against Anderson, a submission loss to Pena, and then a decision win against Pena. As far as Aldana, 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Decision win against Vanessa Melo, Ketlin Vieira, knockout win, Holly Holm, decision loss, Yana Santos, a knockout win, and Macy Chiasson is a knockout win. So I'm probably not betting this fight, and I'm probably not betting Amanda Nunes fights until she retires, which I think is probably coming up within the next couple years, honestly. I think she's towards the end of her career. I'm not really sure how motivated she is, and that's something I'm going to have to worry about from here on out with Nunes. Is she motivated? She left ATT, which I don't like. So she's training on her own. I think she's going to have another baby, so she's going to have 2 babies now. So I'm not really sure how serious she's taking MMA at this point. She's accomplished everything. She's the GOAT. Nothing is going to change. So that's something I always have to worry about with Amanda Nunes. Has she been training? Has she been taking this serious? Because against Juliana Pena, it didn't really look like it in the first fight. The second fight, she comes back and just 10-8s her in about every round, shows that, that she is the GOAT, that she is the best. In terms of this fight, I mean, I'm not as high on Irene Aldana as a lot of people are. Aldana, I actually had a bet on Aldana in her last fight against Macy Chiasson, aka Justin Bieber. And I went back and watched that fight. Like, Aldana won the first round, and then Chiasson dominated the second round. Chiasson was able to take Aldana's back. Justin Bieber was able to get into mount. And at the end of the round, the announcers were talking about that potentially being a 10-8 round for Chiasson. I mean, if we're talking about getting 10-8'd by Chiasson, I mean, what the heck is Amanda Nunes going to do to you? That was a terrible look. And then in the third round, Chiasson was winning the round. She was outlanding her 10-3. Chiasson gets a takedown, and then Irene Aldana gets a Hail Mary up kick to the liver, cashes my ticket, but I did not feel good about that. So you're struggling with Justin Bieber to fighting Amanda Nunes. Then you kind of look through the resume of Irene Aldana, and it's I'm not really impressed with any of these wins. So you got Vanessa Melo, you have Justin Bieber, Yana Santos, who came out and said she was pregnant a day or 2 after the fight. Her best win is Ketlin Vieira. but I'm just not impressed with this resume. Anytime she fights somebody somewhat good, she loses against Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington. She loses the fight. So, I mean, if Amanda Nunes shows up, she's motivated, she wants to fight, she wants to be there, she smokes Aldana. It's not even close. But the reason I can't lay minus 300 on Nunes, and the reason she's not minus 1,000, is because of that Juliana Pena performance where she looked off, she looked old, she looked bad in that fight. So I got to go Nunes here. I think she's the much better fighter at her best, and it's not even close. I think she's better in every single area, and it's not even close. But the kind of narrative thing is what would scare me away from laying minus 300 on Nunes, and laying minus 300 on Nunes is not something I would do in general. So give me Nunes here, but yeah, I mean, it's sketchy laying this price tag on Nunes at this point of her career. If this fight was 2 years ago, I'd be max betting it in a half. So it's going to be a pass fight for me. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this main event?
Yeah, I thought you broke it down perfectly. If the old Amanda Nunes shows up, I mean, she's better everywhere. She's even younger. Did you know that? She's younger than Irene.
That's kind of wild, yeah.
Yeah, it is. You know, I mean, she's got 7 more fights than Irene. She's got 6 more UFC fights than Irene. She's fought the better brand of competition. And like the big thing here is like, look, Amanda Nunes is getting her takedowns at 59%, 32 of 54 on her takedowns. I mean, if there's a grappling deficiency and Amanda doesn't like how it's going on the feet, she can just take you down and punish you on the ground. She's you know, those offensive clinch and ground striking stats for Amanda Nunes, landing 3.45 per minute spent there out of 5.81, well above average. She does work on the ground. She can get the fight to the ground when she wants it there. On the feet, she's got a ton of power. I mean, she's landed 8 knockdowns in 17 fights. So, look, yeah, Irene Aldana, this is a narrative bet if you're on the Aldana side. What you're saying is the UFC is horribly corrupt, right? And they got an event coming up in Mexico where they could potentially have Brandon Moreno as champion and Irene Aldana as champion. Big event in Mexico, get those Mexican fans on board. And maybe if Amanda Nunes is on her way out, maybe if she is whispering in Dana's ear behind the scenes, like, we're going to have this second kid. I'm 35 years old. I've accomplished everything I need to accomplish. I'm going to be walking away soon. We don't know. We don't know if that's but if you just watch the tape, Brady, you're betting Nunes.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the simple thing. Like, if you're laying the juice on Nunes, you're getting the better fighter here. Is she still mentally there? Who knows? You're going to have to take that chance if you want to get Amanda Nunes at minus 350. Because most of the time you got to pay like minus 800, minus 900. And it's because she's that good of a fighter. And I mean, I remember one of the first big bets I made before I started capping and doing this stuff on YouTube was right after gambling was legalized in Illinois. One of my first big bets was Holly Holm over Irene Aldana. And it was just when I had started keeping these stats, Brady, when I was like, oh my God, the difference in the level of competition between these two ladies is night and day. And Holly Holm is regarded as one of the top strikers, like boxers, prior to coming to UFC. So, I mean, like, Irene Aldana isn't going to have the better boxing here. It was an easy bet, and Holm was only about minus 140 in that spot. So, yeah, I like Nunes here, dude. If Amanda Nunes, even the Amanda Nunes in the first 2 rounds of the first Pena fight, she still wins this fight.
Yeah, I mean, if you're betting Aldana, it's because you think Nunes is done, she's retiring, and I mean, it could be, but if we're talking skill for skill, I just don't think it's close at all. I mean, if you're getting dominated by Maisie Chiasson, I mean, there's a problem.
Oh, doing Brady, by the way,
yeah,
one of the worst beats in my life. Yeah. I had the over 2.5 rounds for Chiasson versus Aldana, and that up kick to the liver came 7 seconds before I would have covered that. That was one, that's one bet where I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I mean, an up kick to the liver. The only worst thing would have been is if I had somehow bet money on Ramona Pasquale when she got a jumping knee to the liver, courtesy of Tamires Vidal. That's like the only, that would have been even less likely than an up kick to the liver. But my God, was that a rough way to lose a bet.
Yeah, it was. A shout out to singer-songwriter Justin Bieber. Hopefully we see him back in there.
Yeah, absolutely. He's
I
a
think I think
talented young man and a great fake
yes.
female fighter too.
Yes, very handsome. I think he's actually scheduled to fight Raquel Pennington.
Yes, I think so.
Nice.
Yep.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So we did it, Weezy. We broke down the card. Any final thoughts on the card here?
I hate to say this, but I'm kind of getting some of the same vibes from the last card in that there's a lot of reasons not to bet on either fighter on some of these fights, you know? So I'm going to be looking really heavily at a lot of these time props this week because I think those are the ones that'll make a little more sense. We've got to wonder about some of these fighters, you know, Mike Malott, 11 fights in 12 years, Aiemann Zahabi, like 10 fights in 11 years, some layoffs. I don't know, man. It's going to be a weird card, but that Oliveira Dariush fight, please just let that fight happen.
Yeah, and they should make it 5 rounds, right? I mean that fight deserves to be 5 rounds. It's kind of weird seeing it be 3, but I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters anyway. But
yeah, you're right. You're
yeah.
right. I mean, it would be hard to picture a round 4 between those two dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we did it. Let people know your plans for this week in terms of the content, and also where they can find you as well.
Yeah, you can find me on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday, every Wednesday, and every Saturday. You can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel tomorrow with my man DFS by the Numbers, where we're going to take a data-driven look at all these time props on this card for probability. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. And if you like these new stats, these are available on my Patreon for only $10 a month. And you're going to get all of these divisional benchmarks, the averages for each division. It's different for each division, how each fighter compares to those. It adds a new layer of analysis to the statistics, which are important, but we've got to watch tape and look at the numbers. But it's good when you can look at the numbers and kind of see where fighters are strong, see where they're weak, see where the holes are in their game, and whether their opponent has shown that they're able to exploit those kind of holes. These are some very interesting stats. I'm hoping that we can all find ways to make these stats make us be better gamblers in the long term, Brady. So I'm glad that we got to debut these stats on this week's Stat Diggers, and we're going to be showing you guys these stats from now on going forward, so that you got even a better idea, more reason to tune in here to Pub Sports Radio. We're really working hard to give you the best statistical analysis as well as tape analysis for these fights, so that we can all stack cash tickets like flapjacks, Brady.
Absolutely. The new sheet looks beautiful. Love the color coding there. But yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. I'll be going live with Uncle Weezy tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, we got the DFS show. And then I'll be going live actually twice on my channel Tuesday. I'm going to do kind of a live stream, just talking about the card 289, because I won't be going live Friday. And then I'll be doing a live stream Wednesday for Best Bet. And then I'll be heading on a cruise going to the Bahamas Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I think I'm coming back like that Tuesday night. So I'm going to try to get out the UFC Vegas 75 breakdown before I go as well. So I got to tape like 14 fights by Wednesday, Weezy, for the next card. So it's going to be a grind. And what sucks is like 3 of those fights are going to get canceled. So I'm going to waste my time, but got to get it out. So I got to relax on the cruise. Should be a fun time. Bahamas should be a fun time. But yeah, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a like on your way out. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio, and we will see you guys very soon.